All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Republican National Convention. We are the Young Turks, of course, and now joining us, former senator from Indiana, former congressman from Indiana, former ambassador to Germany, Dan Coates. How are you?
Well,
Senator?
I'm fine. Looks like the operative word is former, huh?
Well, you know, the most recent thing that you did that was in the news, of course, Senator, was your shepherding of Harriet Miers through the Congress. Now, that didn't work out. What do you think went wrong there?
Well, it was clear that what Congress, the majority of Congress, was looking for, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans, was somebody who had a long list of judicial qualifications, which Harriet didn't. Now, there have been other people appointed to the Supreme Court that have been the privilege of the president, whether it's Democrat or Republican, that have been elected, and really weren't necessarily a long pedigree of judicial experience. But were put on for different reasons. But clearly in this case, both sides were looking for someone who had that pedigree, and she didn't, and ran into some problems with that. But the follow-on choice, Justice Alito, then Judge Alito, appeals court judge, was the polar opposite. He had credentials up and down his arm that were very impressive.
There's no question about that. Whether you agree or disagree with Justice Alito, he did have credentials. He did have a long record on the court, of course. So why do you think Harriet Miers was selected then with that lack of experience?
Well, she was White House counsel, and people forget that she had quite a distinguished record. First woman ever. She really was breaking some barriers. The first woman ever head up an all-male law firm in Dallas. First woman elected to head the Bar Association for not only Dallas but for all of Texas. Was about to receive a very high position in the American Bar Association. She had been White House counsel, so it wasn't as if she didn't have credentials. But she didn't have the on-the-bench experience, I think, of adjudicating cases and scholarly writing in terms of constitutional issues that either Justice Roberts had or Justice Alito had.
Again, right or wrong, she was obviously close to the president. The president felt he could trust her. Now, some would say that's cronyism. Others would say, hey, that's logical. That's who was close to the president. So let's go on to other issues now. Obviously, with the Hurricane Gustav, huge in the news. People are reflecting back on Hurricane Katrina and what was not done right there. What's your sense of lessons learned from that? What went wrong during Hurricane Katrina that the administration did not respond to well?
Well, I think what went wrong was first the analysis, and the word that came was that New Orleans survived. Everything was fine. I mean, it was tough wind and so forth and so on. No one anticipated the levee breaks. And when the levees broke, then we were playing catch-up from that point on. And that's the one lesson. The other lesson is the initial preparation. Now, most of that is usually left to the state and to the municipality. I think the lesson learned there is that the federal government needs to get involved in assisting the state and assisting the towns in evacuation and in preparation for housing all these people, for feeding all these people. That this was a magnitude that overwhelmed the ability of the city at the time and the state. They really weren't prepared. And the federal government probably should have stepped in earlier. Now, the great contrast is that all the preparation that has gone into this current in Gustav, and it appears, and we're keeping our fingers crossed and saying our prayers, but it appears now that preparation has been very adequate in terms of protecting human life and protecting property.
That's an interesting point you made. I want to go off of that. Before we do that, though, earlier you said no one could have anticipated the levees would break. Actually, the president, in a videotape session, did get a warning that the levees would not stand. So, just for the record, I wanted to correct
Fair
that.
enough.
But you said that the federal government should get more involved because it's too big an issue. Don't conservatives normally argue against the federal government getting involved in local issues like that?
Normally, but this isn't a local issue. What we learned here is this is a national issue. That sometimes the magnitude of a tragedy is such. 911 is a perfect example. Katrina is an example. Overwhelms the ability of a state or a municipality to handle it. And that's, I think conservatives would say, look, we are not against federal government involvement. We're saying it can best, if what could be done by local levels should be done at local levels. What can be done at state level should be done at state levels. Then and only then, if that can't be handled at a local level or a state level, should the federal government be involved instead of reversing that and saying the federal government will come in and tell the states how to run their states and tell the cities how to run their cities.
Senator Coates, that brings up another interesting issue, which is a very large part of this campaign, which is health care. A lot of people would say that is something that also cannot be handled on a local level, and that it's the federal government who would be best positioned to handle an issue that large. And in fact, like the armed forces, there are some issues that the government should handle and some that the private companies should handle. But with all the profits being made, et cetera, that the government would be in a better position to handle health care. What's your sense of why that isn't right, if you think it's not right?
Well, we're talking about 15 to 18% of our economy, and we're talking about a private sector becoming subordinated to a federal process. And we've also had the opportunity to look at what other countries have done with their national health care systems. And what we've seen is a significant decrease in quality and a lot of people waiting for a long time.
I'm sorry, can I ask, how is that measured? Because a lot of people argue that the other systems, Canada, France, England, etc., do handle more people, and they seem to handle it at a lower price. Where does the quality issue come in, and how do we measure that?
The quality issue comes in with innovation, comes in with the ability to take advantage of advanced research. What happens is what we've seen in some of these countries is a lowering of the standards. Now, the real issue is how can we maintain those standards and still provide that quality of health care to people that don't currently have access to it. And I think the debate is over the role of government in terms of supporting and encouraging the private sector to do a better job in terms of reaching out and providing insurance, providing coverage, providing medical care. We have government system of Medicare in place. We have Medicaid in place, but we also have choice for consumers. A lot of people argue, and I think conservatives will argue, that if you don't give the consumer choice, then you have a bureaucracy making decisions as to who gets the care, how much care that they get, and people ought to know, ought to have the ability to have some selection and choice in the matter, because who's not going to make good choices in their own economic interest?
Senator Coates, last question for you. By the way, in France and in some other countries, they do have choice of which doctor they can go to or which hospital they can go to.
I'm not saying you can't devise a system where you can retain that choice, and I think that's the operative question, and that'll be the debate coming up here in this next administration and the next Congress.
Now, Senator McCain's health care plan, this is the last question. Senator McCain's health care plan involves kind of taking health care away from employers providing it and letting you make private choices. But wouldn't that also take away leverage? Because combined you would have more leverage with HMOs and PPOs, and that individually we would have less leverage, and that hence prices might rise for consumers.
Well, my understanding of his plan is it doesn't take it away from employers, but it also gives the employee an option. If the employer is not, a lot of employers have scaled back on what they're providing. So what he wants to do is give employees an option to have an alternative to what the employer provides. And I think, again, that goes to the question of choice. And in that case, I think it's a superior plan than a mandated plan.
Right. It would involve choice, but then you would have less leverage because you're not all united to get a better price from the health care as your employer would be. If you're working for IBM and they bring in all these people and they say, hey, lower the price, they are in a better situation. But if you're a sole employee of IBM, then you would have less leverage with the HMO, presumably.
Yeah, but the employee then has the opportunity to look at that, and if together they can negotiate an acceptable health care plan, I would think most employees would want to stay with that. If for some reason the company doesn't yield and they don't get the health care plan they want, why not give them the opportunity to go outside of that plan?
All right, Senator Dan Coates from Indiana, we really appreciate it.
Appreciate the good questions.
Thank you for coming on the Young Turks.
Thank you.